Blessed love and peace in Rastafari. Come on, y'all. I love y'all, but come on, y'all. Come on, y'all. Y'all are calling me. Yes, you right now. Whoever's watching this right now, you're calling me at this very moment, saying, "Yo, let's chop it up." And I'm like, "Yo, it's 4 a.m. Come on, y'all. Mondays, we're gonna do it Mondays, God willing. Mondays, 9 a.m. to midnight. 9 a.m. to midnight. 9 a.m. to noon. Finding I and I. That's our window for reasoning weekly, so that we have a routine, a rhythm, regularity, building trust, confidence, consistency, momentum, relationship, productivity, reliability, them things like this. So I'm gonna tell you what I'm doing exactly at this very moment. Hard drive, 4 a.m. plugging it in. Why? Because as I'm recording this, I'm making sure there's enough room for it to be recorded. So I have to transfer files from the laptop right at this moment, so that by the time whatever this does, whatever this is, whenever this concludes, there's enough space for it on the computer. Voila. So I gotta think about this whilst I'm talking. So I'm gonna pause for a second just so I can begin this process, so there actually is space for this joint. And I'm going to explain, God willing, what I's doing at this moment and what I'm talking about. All right, so let's see. We got files. And yeah, I could do this before recording and everything else like that. But I could also record in another hour. So I'm multitasking so that there's certain efficiency. And why I got so much energy at 4 a.m.? What's going on? All right. Serious. Got so much stuff done. Uploaded, downloaded, reloaded. All right. You know what? We're going to do all this. That's not going to be enough. All right. Biggest files. Where's the biggest files at? Your bigger buggers. Where they at? Yo. Oh, no, I'm not gonna do that one. It's very tantalizing, but yeah. Big up, down south. Why do these things keep coming back up? I closed you out. Talking to the computer here. Just trying to clean up. Whoa, okay, that's what's happening there, all right. What up? Okay. All right, that's that. Serious, come on. Stop playing. Where they at? Big files. Where the big files at? Manage. Reduce clutter. Review files. Video. 6 gigabytes, 5 gigabytes, 5 gigabytes. All y'all, come on. We're gonna bring you home to the hard drive. All y'all. Oh, it's gonna take a while to do that too. Okay, that's why I'm doing this right now though. Okay. Oh, the exterior dialogue. Monologue. How about that's what these joints? It's not a soliloquy, it's monologues. Let's make this a multi-log. How about that? We want to transfer yours. Transfer. Wait, hold up. Is the hard drive registered? Do you see it? You see it. Okay. Now then we get bunga dunga 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 dunga. Finder. New finder window. And we go to the passport. Interesting that. Passport. Can we do this right here? Oh, you don't want to do that right there. Oh, no, you don't want to do that. Okay. Oh, wait a minute. Do you do that? Oh, nah, God, bunga. All right. Let's try this again. Bunka dunka 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 dunka. All the way to 50. Yeah, it's not going to be 50. All right. Not too much. Let's just do a modest amount for the first occasion. For the first transfer. It's not going to happen. Okay. One by one. Can we do it one by one? Oh, we're gonna have to do that. All right. So exciting, so exhilarating. So, what is that? Okay, recent joints. Okay. Ah, okay. Those are the zoomies. The zoomies. That's what's doing it. Okay. The accumulation of the zoomy zoom. The zoom. Ha, ha, ha. Let's watch that too. All right. So then let's show that in the finder. How about let's just do that? Okay, that makes it simple. We gonna do the zooms. The zooms. All the SMS feeds, the sovereign mindset solution joints that we done did for the past joints. That's gonna be a lot. Okay. Yeah. All right. That's gonna be decent. God willing. So we're gonna do a little bit of that copy, 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 copy. Ha ha ha. And you know I won't fake it. No, see where that goes to? All that nostalgia. Oh, come on, yeah. Paste item. Okay. It looks like we in business. Ah, activity out in the courtyard at 4 a.m. Multiple activity. Interesting. And that's actually what precipitates my presence at this moment. 37 gigabytes, 6 minutes. Dougie Fresh Show on. 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 I can't, yo, that's Dougie Fresh, so big up. Yo, and sharing love to the HU just a couple years ago. What's going on? That's trippy yippy. Anyways, so now we get into what's going on today. We in the momentum. That's actually kind of decent. I'm trying to figure out why it's going so fast at this moment. 37 gigabytes in 5 minutes. Okay. Anyways, what's going on right now? 7 minutes into this joint. 4 a.m. 4:08 a.m. now. 4:80. Now the activity done bounced. What's going on with that too? Very inconspicuously as well. Very kind of like calmly interesting. Like just pop up, pop out. All right. What's going on? So it's Thursday. Actually, technically, I guess, depending on what clock you're utilizing, it's Friday. It's actually Bon Friday, meaning Good Friday, meaning like the holy accumulation, culmination, heading to Easter in the Gregorian calendar and the Christian experience of this world amongst kinfolk of such ilk. So that's the intensity that we're dealing with at this moment. It's Ramadan. We got the hydration, and we just have Nowruz recently, holy. It's the approach of Pesach. So yo, this is one of the intense windows spiritually on earth, around the world, for all kinfolk of all beliefs, because it's intense for many kinfolk of particular beliefs, and that influences the relationship and interaction with all kinfolk. So whether you believe it or not, it still affects all of us. Intensity. This is also the beginning period of the harvest cycle of planting seeds in the northern hemisphere of this earth. That's another reason why this is the intensity of the spirituality, because that's the connection, that's the relationship. The other window of intensity is towards the end of the harvest season in the northern hemisphere of the earth, which is when there is the occurrence of the high holy days within Judaism, as well as the eventual, a little bit later, Diwali. There's the Mid-Autumn Festival from China. And additionally, again, pay attention to the calendars. It tells you a lot. It tells you the lot. How about that? Yo, the lot. Anyways, so that's what we're going through at this moment. And it influences everything. People get stressed. People get influenced. People get inspired. People get informed. People get guidance and vision. Extremely influential. So, anyways, that's what we're dealing with at this moment. And it affects everybody. Because when other cats are stressed, yo, guess what? It happens. And it influences interaction and relationship. So, I also had a little bit of coffee, just half a cup, but still. Anyways, why do I got this energy, and why am I awake at 4 a.m. even on a Maudi Thursday, heading into Monday, or heading into Bon Friday, Good Friday? Like, this is, if we're looking at that calendar and that experience within the Christian faith, this is when Jesus is done dirty. And we had the conversation earlier today about Judas. What's Judas trying to get with them 30 shekels? Wasn't pilfering the tzedakah cup enough? How much does he want? Was it getting too hectic? Um, and also, like, what couldn't Jesus give him some whatever he was looking for, anyways? But obviously, everything happens for a reason. But still, yeah, we gotta ask these questions because we continue to live the experience and learn. So, all that being said, what am I doing here at 4 a.m.? Still haven't answered that 411. What's the 411? Haha. Yo, what's going on with these 90s references and nostalgia? Like, I done dropped like probably half a dozen references already just within this 10 minutes. That's for those who get it. Yo, pick it up. Pick it up, pick it up, pick it up. Serious, what's going on? What's going on? I got all right. 4 a.m. 4 o'clock in the morning. It's actually 5 o'clock, but that's okay. Serious. That's a dozen right there. That's a dozen references. Classic. Not always the most redemptive because, like I said, some of them joints, yo, we gotta leave them as it is. 4 a.m. It's Thursday. Heading into Friday. Also, just again as a frame of reference, technically on the in other traditional calendars, the day begins when the night falls. So it's the sixth day of the week. Juma, Shabbat, approaching and further. So, anyways, that's the vibration at this moment. Now, why are you calling me into conversation? Amidst the extemporaneous, not the extemporaneous, the extemporal experience of this interweb cipher. Serious Mondays. Let's you chop it up. Mondays, 9 a.m. God willing. So 9 a.m. Eastern, not Eastern, Atlantic. Okay, we done transfer that. So that means that's done. Okay, now we can bin this joint. Bin. Still have yet to get to what's going on at this moment. That's okay. Anticipation. There's been a lot of energy, entertainment. What you want, what you pay for. You get what you need. All right. That's what we're looking for. Now let's check out that finder. Oh, we got 50 gigs. Oh, we gonna be on this joint. All by the grace of the Most High. So now we're getting to it. Now we can concentrate. There we go. So 4 a.m. Thursday into Friday, high intensity moment. It's not the first time we've been through this, so we knew this. Trying to think where to begin. I'll just begin like right where I'm looking at. So about a couple hours ago, 2 a.m. probably. Didn't look at the clock. This is the first time I'm looking at the clock. Don't try to look at the clock too tough at all. Not hating on the clock, but just the clock can be very enslaving. So be mindful of that. We're talking to each other. A few hours ago, 2 hours ago, about that much. I'm asleep. Thursday evenings is a time, like as the sun is being hidden by the western horizon. The western sun, how about that? The eastern sun and the western sun, okay. Soleil. As Thursdays on our schedule, like in our spiritual community of Asona Ashram and Sangha Yosef, that's a period for singing songs as community of kinfolk in the spiritual community, kinfolk outside who just want to vibration, vibe out, vibe in, vibe up, just singing songs. So that's Thursdays at that point, dusk. That's the discipline. I am working to be further regular with that. Didn't do it at that moment earlier today because I got back here past that time. Actually, I did. I got back here past that time, and it's been a while since I've done it, a couple weeks at least, here in at Asona Ashram, and so today as I arrive, fatigue, yo. I've been out. I've been doing things. Energy level is low, so at that point I'm like, yo, I'm gonna get a nap. Get some rest, get some sleep, maybe for a couple hours, and then if I wake up again in the next few or whatever, then I'll do the songs at that point. It's still our work in terms of having like a collective group experience and everything. We're still working into that kind of comfort zone and conditions. It's beneficial to have a space that's comfortable. A personal residence is difficult because it's it's intimate, it's immediate, and so it's a big step for many people to take. When even just doing the exercise of singing songs is like a huge step already. Just to do it in somebody's actual personal residence is a huge step. So we have like an intermediary space that I'm looking at, which is the schoolhouse. At the moment, it's just a frame. So that's anyways. It's been a while since I do it. Today, and getting back into the routine and doing it proper or further proper, energy level low. So okay, let me get some rest because doing it half asleep, come on, yeah. I mean, yeah, we do if must be, but like still, come on, let's do it in earnest as much as possible, optimally. So I'm like, okay, you know what? Let me get some sleep. Give me some rest. Give me some energy. I've been fasting. I just had some food. Let me like get process some of that, and if I wake up again just like naturally in the next few hours, whatever, get up and do some songs at that point. So that's what I do. I lay down because I'm still recovering from injuries and abuse, so I need to be mindful of this, and because that affects the ability to do this as well, so can't ignore that, particularly as we get these gray joints. So anyways, that's what I do, very legit. And so then in the middle of the night a couple hours ago, to be honest, actually a little bit trippy, but we've had experiences we got experiences way trippier than this. But I was having a dream. In the dream, um, it's people are like it's like a kind of clandestine kind of situation. Like I won't say Armageddon type thing, but it's like kinfolk are like tribed up, and it was people from different backgrounds or whatever, like as a group that were like fleeing and like getting away from what was going on, the hectic or whatever, but even still, like not necessarily getting along with each other too tough, and started having a disagreement with each other, and kind of reverting to like historic biases between each other in just that collective, like maybe like a few dozen people or whatever, and so like starting to like get at each other in this way. That's the dream. Now, as I'm dreaming this, I'm starting to wake up. As I'm waking up, I can hear people arguing outside the window where I'm at, and there's flashing lights. I'm gonna leave it at that. And there's a sister talking loudly, and brethren talking loudly back. That's in this actual earthly realm, wake state. That's what's happening outside the window, and that was about 2 a.m. So I'm awake now at this point. Now, at this point, my protocols that are called upon, the protocols that are called upon me in terms of intercession and additionally the well-being of kinfolk in the village, the protocols are adjusted because conditions are adjusted. So in previous years, and additionally, I've had the onus, the obligation of being present, observing, interceding when necessary, regardless of who's involved in altercations, and additionally, at this moment, it's different because the circumstances are different. So at that point, I'm just like, um, I'm gonna go into my mantra because I'm trying to get some sleep. So I'm just gonna go into my immediate mantra of just like keeping some space from getting into the head, and focusing on again getting the energy so that we can do the further constructive work for the well-being of all beings. Um, we have a responsibility for the well-being of ourselves. We have a responsibility for the well-being of the kinfolk that are immediately around us. We also have a responsibility for the well-being of all kinfolk. And so the levels of priority in each of these circumstances varies, and so we have to be mindful of that. And there's guidance about how to make decisions about those situations and circumstances and episodes. And at this moment, that was initially the protocols for myself. It's just like I need to like work on my energy levels at that moment. So I started to recite a mantra so that I can just get some peace in the mind, and just like focus on okay, just being calm and resting my body, and additionally facilitate the regenerative process of my muscle tissues, and further. So as I'm doing that, I'm reminded, oh wait, what day is this? Okay, it's Thursday, so it's not Shabbat, so I can do certain things. And then I'm like, oh, wait, I was supposed to do the song joints. So then I'm like, okay, do I have energy? Yeah, I do have energy, actually, and I should be praying soon too, because I have yet to offer Isha and Maghrib, to be honest, and I can go further, but anyways. Um, So I think about that, and then I'm like, oh yeah, the songs. So I got energy to do that. Is this appropriate time? Yeah, it's appropriate time. I'm actually being called to do it. Am I obligated to answer the call? Yeah. So that's what I do. Do the songs. Where am I going with all this? Yeah, this is actually not the purpose of the immediate purpose of action. I have to be mindful of how I articulate this. The reason for me sharing this moment, the topic is actually not what I'm talking about. It's actually further. So, and I gotta be mindful of that because that's the whole thing. So, anyways, all right. So I wake up, I do the songs, and it's like a dozen songs, maybe a little bit over a dozen songs from different traditions. We have a standard thing, but then it's like it's open, but we have like a standard set where of songs. Just the vibration. It's welcoming kinfolk of all tribes and languages of the many tribes of the world, so that there's a balance there. That's just how we do with Sangha Yosef, with the Nyabingi rhythm. Very simple, basic, foundational, rooted, and then from that, with that energy, then we open it up. Whoever's in the circle and whoever's in the cipher, yo, we just vibrate. So, anyways, that's what I do. And as I'm doing that, the situation outside calms. I mean, we can expect that one way or the other, because that's the nature of things. And so now, the pretty much the only sound is that's pretty much evidenced, at least by these ears, is this mouth, and the drum, the hands. So, uh, circumstances, at least, let me tell it, are further copacetic at this moment. Um, and hallelujah. So, and seriously, hallelujah. I'm not saying, oh, I calmed everything else. That's not what I'm saying, and I'm not saying that either. But ultimately, everything is attributed to the Most High. So, however and wherever and whomever it is done with, from, through, and whatever, it's all the Most High. So we say hallelujah regardless and regardful. So that's that. Now, then after I conclude that, yo, now I can like rehydrate. How about that? I've already said the blessing for this as well. And like I have energy now. I had the nap. I did the songs. I got that vibration going on, positivity. So I sit here and just kind of like relax. And it's dark. I mean, you can tell it's dark already, but like there's not this light that is here at the moment. So I'm just vibration. There's street lights out here, but that hide the starlights. But that's another story. Um. So then, what's the point of all this? Where am I getting at? Who killed Bob Marley? That's where we're going with this. Who killed Bob Marley? And the answer to that is Bob Marley. Because who kills any of us? Ourselves, ultimately. And everything else around us is simply the conduit. Well, everything is the Most High. But if we're going to attribute blame or whatever anybody else, it is ourselves. And there's a reason for me saying this, and this is with all due respect, blessed love, and peace to Bob Marley, all his progeny, and loved ones and kinfolk, and additionally. Um, so this is an explanation of what I'm talking about, so people can further understand the conditions and the nature of these things. And how it applies to today, to our lives at this moment. Whoever we are, wherever we're at, whatever we're doing, it applies to us because it's the nature of life. And people like Bob Marley are teachers. His Majesty Haile Selassie I, Her Majesty Wazir Amanin, all our ancestors, all our prophets, all our sages are teachers who provide us with guidance about this nature of life and examples, the episodes, um, to help us in progressing along the straight path, and being optimal in our service, in our seva of Tikkun Olam on this Inamaka, with Inamaka. So on this Inamaka, that's the translation of concepts, the interlinguistic, intertraditional, and returning to Shuva of concepts and articulation. So that's the reason for that clumsiness. All things in praise. So understanding the nature of life, the teachers, Bob Marley being one of these, Robert Nesta. So Bob Marley killed Bob Marley. People, I mean, the One Love movie just came out. People, it's in popular culture mindset. The fact that the Love movie came out, that's at this moment, that's another thing as well. Um, However, people feel about that, um, it puts things into the conversation things at the mainstream level. So um, it's a matter of just having understanding about that and then responding to it in a dutiful manner. If whenever there's a party along those lines. Now, there's a presumption of people having some understanding about or some prior knowledge about who Bob Marley is, and some understanding or awareness about the circumstances around his death. But just as a recap, um, just as he was, I mean, he was already world known and celebrated and loved and studied um, by the point of about 44 years ago, about 1980. 44 years ago, 1980. But at the same time, one of the things that he works towards in his life is connecting with kinfolk of African ancestry in the United States. Over 30 million kinfolk, particularly because of the kinship and the significance of the cipher amongst Black people on this continent, and the implications of that worldwide as well, in just terms of Pan Africanism, but also in world affairs and just like the earth spirituality. And so, just as he was like on the just broke into that, did his concert in Madison Square Garden, beginning a tour of the continent, having gotten into the infrastructure of the distribution of music, the air, the broadcast, radio, and just like okay, it's about to be on. That's when he experiences the health situation, and then from that, um, within the next year, he returns to our ancestors. So people speculate about the 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 conventional rationale or the conventional explanation of him having a disease that was accumulated from an absence of regular attention from the Western medicine, and so by that point it had become incurable. That's the conventional storyline. People talk about him being killed in a similar way as other prominent figures during that period in the past decade and 2 decades before that, through different means of assassination, whether it's gunshots, whether it's poisoning, whether it's like um, abduction and uh, just gone missing or whatever. So people speculate along those lines. People talk about there being a device placed in one of his shoes to invoke the supposedly alleged illness, and otherwise. I recently referenced the metaphysical explanation of just on like a spiritual experience in this earthly realm, of just the energy of him giving so much of his energy and getting into another realm of doing that at some point, like the body, and it's not reverting to the Western medicine explanation, but just knowing that the body can only hold so much in terms of being a conduit of sharing that energy and that awakening, and thus it begins to deteriorate amongst it being called upon to do so much in such a finite period of time, that it just manifests beyond the will of the individual who's residing within that body. That's the nature of it. And so I explain that, or I articulate that within recent joints like this, but now I'm articulating it in somewhat of a different way. Um, and this is particularly appropriate at this moment because of where conditions are at this moment in terms of world society. and how it applies to each of our lives, particularly those who are utilizing these devices. And additionally, um, and then we'll see what happens with commentary afterwards, or whatever, God willing. So, uh, what I do to explain this, like again, who killed Bob Marley? Bob Marley. Who kills any of us? Each of us, respectively. Um, and there is no natural death in this life, and that's like, it's tenacious to think that, but that's actuality. It's always, well, I'm not going to get into that because it's a little bit, it's a heavy thing, and it's not the most productive at this moment for the purpose of this conversation, for the purpose of this monologue, lecture, devara, reasoning. What's reasoning when it's just one kinfolk at that moment? The whole phenomenon of recording and the internet is like changes things, because this is very much a cipher. Like, there's a connection going on right now. There's very strong suspicion of this being surveillance at this moment, so it is a cipher. Like, there's communication going on telepathically and further. That's just at this very moment, temporally. And then we talk about extemporaneity, like whoever receives this like 1,000 years from now, and then whoever shared this 1,000 years ago. Like, that's where we're at this moment. So it's not just a matter of me speaking with this voice, that being of the conversation. It's a matter of like all of this, all the thoughts, all the sentience of all the beings, who are involved directly and ultimately within this experience of communication at this moment, being part of it. So it's not just me. Is that trippy? Is that crazy? Crazy is as crazy does, or perhaps it's crazy is as crazy thinks. Um, but we're all a projection. Then we have a decision. So now that's been said, here's the pretext. Here's like the foundation, to understand what I'm talking about, and specifically turn in respect, with respect, and belovedness, and humble appreciation and gratitude for the gifts and sharings of Robert Nesta, and the kinfolk who inspire him, his mother Sadela Booker, His Majesty Haile Selassie I, and Her Majesty Waziramanen, Madame Plano, and all the kinfolk, who inspire him and teach him. So, to give the foundation of what I'm talking about, we go back to the Varna system within India. The caste system. In the caste system, there are four formal official castes, which is the Brahmins, the Kshatriyas, the Vaishyas, and the Shudras. The Brahmins are at the top, quote unquote. Those are the priests. Those are the ones who have the knowledge about the rituals, the stories, the teachings, the ethics, the way of being in this life, and share that. It's not necessarily the kinfolk who are the richest and who have money. A lot of the Brahmins, historically and today, are poor. They live without money because it's not about money. Where does money come from? It's like, it's beyond money. Kinfolk provide contributions because kinfolk need that wisdom and that guidance, particularly kinfolk with money need that wisdom and that guidance. And Brahmins know, yo, I don't need money. I don't need that kind of influence. I have knowledge about how things are. So the ambition is not to get powerful. It's not to get influential. It's just a matter of walking the life, and understanding that the whatever support is necessary, whatever support is appropriate, is going to happen. And so there's trust, there's faith, there's awareness, and it's there's imperfection, or the illusion of imperfection. And so it's not invincibility, but it's just an awareness of how the nature of things are. And so, but that's the Brahmins, the priests. Though that's the role that the priests play in society. The second category is the Kshatriyas. The Kshatriyas are the shot callers, the ballers, the princes and kings, the presidents, the dictators, the military leaders, the warriors, the soldiers. Those are the ones that are involved in government, controlling, quote unquote, or regulating the behavior of people, the society, and additionally, so the law enforcement agencies, the police, and additionally, those are the second-class citizens, or the second caste members of society, the Kshatriyas. And this is all hereditary. This is inherited from parents to children, and people just stay in their own lanes. Don't marry anybody outside their own caste, and just like that's what it is. And there's a rigidity within it as well. All right, and There's rigidity within it as well, which has its own susceptibilities and vulnerabilities and points of criticism. But there's order. People know their place, and it facilitates interaction accordingly. So that's part of the job of the Kshatriyas, is the regulation of the behavior. And we continue on. The third caste is the Vaishyas, and so these are the typically historically these are referred to as like the merchants, the ones who are doing business. But what we can understand is that when we get to this level of the caste system, we're talking about the laborers, and they're basically two types of laborers. There are those that do the mental labor, and those we can talk about that as white collar jobs. And so, again, historically, I mean, we're in a different age at this moment where a lot of jobs are kind of like just mind, even service job. Well, service job is a different thing. But a lot of the jobs, particularly within society, particularly within the higher echelons, the higher socioeconomic experience, business people, entrepreneurs, CEOs, those aren't Kshatriyas per se, kind of, sort of. Those are actually the third caste. Those are the white collar laborers, the ones who use their mind, but they're laboring. So it's only recently that's actually like a big thing. Historically, people who use their mind, labor their mind with their minds, were like merchants and other things like that, where they would have a mouthpiece. They could think about things, calculate things, keep track of records and scribes. First of all, recognizing that few people were literate. Hundreds of years ago, and particularly thousands of years ago. So scribes tend to be those who were the Brahmins. In this in context, I'm talking about worldwide. In any tradition, any of those who had like the ability to read tended to be those who had knowledge about the religious teachings as well. So they were typically the Brahmins. However, particularly within further recent centuries, again, when we talk about accounting records, banking, and stuff like that, again, those were the merchants, and so that's the third caste. So that's all the way down. People who labor with their mind. Then the fourth level, and this is at the bottom, is those who labor with their body. These are the kinfolk who are in the field. These are the kinfolk who are cleaning and providing services, but basically laboring with the body. So it's using less of the mind, and it's using the physical labor. And so people are valued accordingly along these four categories. And there's definitely a perception of superiority. Brahmins who know will say that it's all equal ultimately. Now, again, that's Brahmins who know and who are honest enough to say that, because even very, very largely, the Brahmins have a sense of superiority, being at the top of the chain or whatever. But in actuality, there's an awareness of like each one ascending even beyond like karma and descending beyond um, the experience of reincarnation and all those implications, and additionally. And so, but that's like a high level kind of Brahmin awareness and practice. But anyways, those are the four. And that helps to put things into perspective and context across any society, looking at observing those four categories in every society to understand how things work, how things progress, understand things like injustice and persecution and oppression and imperialism and enslavement, and all these things within a society and against societies against each other. So it gives a helpful framework of those things through today. So, oftentimes, the systems of oppression, the systems of injustice, um, okay, I won't. I'll avoid like getting too kind of big picture and complicated. I'll just go back to like just Bob Marley. So, when we talk about Bob Marley, now it's interesting case study because he's coming from a mixture of castes, a mixture of tribes, a mixture of race, colors, all those things. So, and this is part of the experience of today's world society. Let me tell it. Amidst all the accusations of mixedness concerning myself. Ego. Jungle fever right there. The tea. I'm going to burn some water. Out from the darkness, back from the darkness, into the darkness. All right, so we're talking about the Varnas today. All right. The birds, the robins. Yeah, that's about it. We're getting into Fajr. Okay. So let's wrap. Let's be mindful of this and be further expedient. So talk about the Varnas. Today. And talking about the systems of oppression, how it's done. Oh yes, I'm not supposed to be getting into the big picture system things. All right. Bob Marley. All right, so talking about the mix of coming from different backgrounds. So his father is one who is of the European ancestry in Jamaica, the Caribbean, and so there are the Varna implications that not specifically because of race, because those four castes around the world exist within each race, exist within each racial category, within each ethnic category. So there are African Brahmins, there are European Brahmins, there are Arab Brahmins, there are Israeli Brahmins, and there are Israeli Shudras and Vaishyas, and there are Arab Shudras and Vaishyas, and there are African Shudras and Vaishyas, and there are European Shudras and Vaishyas, and all across the board, east, west, north, south. And a lot of the context about, again, enslavement and additionally, is basically people taking advantage of the disenfranchised within another community and further. So, I mean, that's just the nature of enslavement and whatever. So, Bob Marley is coming from a confluence of those distinctions, of those, that separateness, that apartheid. Serious, lightweight, no, serious, full. Anyway. And so his consciousness, his walk in his life is a continual reconciling of that experience within himself and with the world. One love. Big up and respect and peace and blessings to Marcus Garvey. So he is intrinsically processing, synthesizing that experience of being his roots being from different Varnas, not just ethnically, but traditionally. So, and again, billions of people having that experience today, and so it's part of the nature of Earth civilization, and traditionally the teachings from India and within India are very traditional teachings. Earthly teachings from India are very reprimanding about mixing of castes, because that disrupts the order, that disrupts the social order, and additionally, which is relevant, but at the same time is criticized by the spiritually awakened, because again, there's ultimately just the oneness. But it's difficult to have that oneness, to sustain that oneness in a conventional sense, because it requires discipline and empathy and giving of self. And as a systematic way of being with many humanoids, it's difficult to sustain that intergenerationally. And so it's easier just to get things blinders on and everybody plays their role accordingly. But we're always continually guided to return to the garden in that oneness. So, and that's one of the things that Bob Marley teaches and shares. So, who killed Bob Marley, and what am I talking about? Um, I'll get just right. I'll get right to this, like to the crux of it. So Bob Marley's coming from an experience of like the Shudras, of like the physical laborers, those who were in the field, of African slaves, the descendants of African slaves. He himself is born in Saint Anne, and in the rural areas of Jamaica, and labors, works in the field. Now, I'm just keep it at that. His father is coming from the essentially the Vaishyas, those who are the merchants. His father's family are business people, and so are laboring with the mind. Um, it's also beneficial to recognize that even in today's society, those who are the business people are not the top of society. Even if they're the richest, they're still not the top of society. There are those who are above them. They're actually just third class citizens within the society. So it's beneficial to recognize that, because again, it puts the things in perspective, and it helps to recognize like where the decisions are actually being made, where the power actually resides, and where the truth actually exists. But Bob Marley is coming from that experience. His father, being from basically the Vaishyas, his mother being from the Shudras, um, and then as he walks in his path of life, he gets into the realm of the Kshatriyas, because at that period, amidst the political strife within Jamaica, the people getting at each other, the whole East-West kind of thing, Russia, United States, capitalism, communism, Cuba, and additionally the land Big Up Taino. Um, Bob Marley is sharing by that point this message of transcendence, of getting beyond those divisivenesses, and focusing on the cooperation, one love, and reconciliation. So now it's a political thing. Now it's a leadership thing. Now it's a government thing, influencing people's behavior. And by that point, the lines of like societal control or societal regulation of behavior are blurred. It's not just a government thing at that point. This is 50 years ago. It's not just a government thing. Now it is in the realm of business, because the media has a significant influence about what people see, how people are informed, and what people do with that information and with that influence. So the nature of government is evolves just in the past century with media and other things. I mean, newspapers and additionally had that influence over a century ago, but particularly today, or particularly 50 years ago with media and those who are influential in media. So Bob Marley is now in that realm 50 years ago of the Kshatriyas. He went from like the Shudra Vaisya kind of thing to the second class system, or second caste realm of society, and particularly in Jamaica, but even in the world. He begins having that influence. And so now he has to like vie with the people who are at that level, people who've been at that level for generations, who know the ins and outs of how to govern people. So it's not just some person doing it on dolo style who's just like emerged into that realm of being, and is like figuring things out as they go along, and everything being inspired and divinely supported. Like, people have lived in that realm of leadership and government for generations, and everybody they know is in that realm too, so they have support. It's not just like they know what to do from day to day. They know how the game works, and so it's not that big of a thing. They know how to live. They know the discipline, and so like they've been at that joint. So that's no guarantee, because they still have to vibe with people who are emerging and falling and everything else like that. So, anyways, but that's the realm that Bob Marley gets into, and it's a very difficult realm to be in, because, like I said, when kinfolk are emerging that from a different kind of realm, from a different kind of caste, it has a lot of discovery of learning how the game works and everything else like that. And there's fewer people who can give earthly guidance about how to be in that realm. So that's a lot of what Bob Marley experiences, who to trust, what guidance to trust, and additionally. So, but again, when somebody gets into that kind of experience, things become further shaky, things become further volatile, because there's less room for error, and additionally, but it's all a divinely guided process. And there's a divinely guided purpose within it. But that's the path that Bob Marley is on in this life, and so he gets into that realm of the Kshatriyas, of the government. And when he's in that realm, he doesn't align himself with any of the other established collectives like East West or whatever, and we're talking about the whole situation with the Smile Jamaica concert, the assassination attempt, and additionally, and so um, there's a vulnerability when staying out of the factions of governance. But there's also a liberation within that and a truth within that as well. And again, the support and um, along those lines. So, all right, we're almost at the the resolution of this joint, God willing. So, point being, at this moment, Bob Marley gets into that realm of the second caste, Kashaitras. And at that point, again, things get intense. There's less room for error. Every step has further weight and implications and effect. And so it's just a matter of understanding that. And then when everything goes down with the Smile Jamaica, the assassination attempt, Bob Marley goes to England to get some distance from what was going on. People getting at each other and everything else like that, and then him being called by the whole of Jamaica, like, yo, we need you, please come back, help us. The politicians reaching out, the gangsters and everybody else reaching out, and he comes back and he does the concert, and at that concert, he brings the leaders of the factions of government together to hold hands together in a transcendent moment of Jah Rastafari, give thanks and praise. Yo, at that before that point, but particularly at that point in everybody's eyes, he done transcended officially that level of Kshatriya into the Brahmin caste. Now he like there's no he I won't say he conquered politics, but he transcended politics at that point. So now he's in the Brahmin thing of Jamaica. He's a priest at that point, even before that point, but officially, like publicly, formally, that's like a coronation of going into the Brahmin caste, of the first caste of the society, the religious leaders, the Christian leaders, the clergy, and additionally, he's at that level now. He's beyond just a government leader. And it's not an ambition. It's just that this is just what happens. This is just the nature of things. So he goes into the first caste. He goes into the hierarchy of society, of Jamaica, but also on the world sphere, because that's the nature of world society at this moment. On the official stage in front of everybody's eyes, there's no arguing that. Those castes who are killing each other, literally shooting each other into the streets, the leaders are on stage holding hands. That's transcending politics at that point. That's transcending government. It's another level. And again, in another level, things get further intense. Things get further shaking. Things get further heavy. And there are fewer people to give that earthly guidance about how to walk in that realm. And so that's where we're at when things eventually lead to what I mentioned before in terms of Madison Square Garden, about to do the tour in the United States, and additionally, because at that moment, 50 years ago, and particularly seriously today, when we look at the nature of the first caste, who the priests are in world society today, and within each of the respective societies, it's beneficial to recognize who that is at this moment, because it's beyond what traditionally exists and what people seem to typically perceive today. Now, on one hand, we have the traditional religious leaders, as has existed for thousands of years: Judaism, Hinduism, Buddhism, Christianity, Islam, Taoism, all the traditional leaders who have the traditional knowledge. That's still today much of what constitutes the first caste of the Brahmins of the world, the priestly castes of the world. However, there's a huge collective, an additional demographic that's included within the Brahmin caste of today, and that's science and technology. Doctors, engineers, in terms of like particularly like those who have a knowledge about physics and chemistry and are able not just to do things in terms of like build inventions and blow up things and diseases per se. It's kinfolk who have a knowledge about the way the natural universe works, and are able, not able, but have, because of that knowledge, provide guidance that is belief. And that's the significant thing. It's not just a matter of like being influential, because people can use that knowledge just to make money, and in making money, that's not even the second level. That's third level. To make money, that's third level, because the money is issued by the second level. So to use, if one has knowledge of chemistry, like Breaking Bad or whatever, and it's like, yo, I can make loot from that. Right there, they're submitting themselves to the U.S. government, and all the mechanics of the second level of Kashyyytras, because the whole notion of making a lot of money and getting all the benefits from that, it's relying upon all the things that the United States does to make that money valuable. So again, it's using that knowledge about chemistry and physics and everything else like that, that has significant influence about what people believe about existence and even God, or the absence or the disbelief in God and everything else like that. It's taking that knowledge and just using it for a third caste kind of thing. People can use that knowledge and for the purpose of behavioral control. When we look at a lot of psychiatry, what I recently referred to in terms of pink slipping, and additionally, that's further along the lines of the second level of endeavoring to like control behavior of society, not just like for the purpose of personal gain, but like trying to like run teams. That second level. But then even further, it's a matter of using that knowledge to influence what people believe, that's where science and technology is, because particularly in the past 50 years, and particularly over the past century, but particularly within the past 50 years, largely around the world society, as much as we can discern, it seems as though people have lost a lot of the knowledge about how the body works, physiology, about nature, and a lot about the understandings of the universe, the natural universe, the spiritual universe, and additionally, and have become significantly reliant upon the knowledge that's provided through science, because through utilizing science devices and inventions provided by science, and thus relying upon how science explains the universe. So science is essentially a religiosity itself, and people buy into the religiosity significantly over the past century because of the earthly benefits that science provides through weapons, through transportation, communication, and additionally. So it becomes a religion. Even when it calls itself a non-religion, it's still the system of belief. And those who have a knowledge about science, physics, biology, and chemistry particularly, and that might be perceived as somewhat of a bias, considering the relationship and experience with pharmaceuticals and additionally, but that's part of it. People who have that knowledge are the Brahmins of science. They're the priestly caste of science, and so when we talk about Bob Marley, and transcending politics at that point, staying out of it, and it's not easy. It's not easy not choosing a side. It's extremely difficult. He's extremely vulnerable. Witness the whole assassination, and the whole assassination is attempt is another thing, because it's referred to that, and I reference it. I utilize that term. There are other ways of explaining it as well, but that's another story. But in that sequence, and transcending the politics, and transcending like the second tier of Kshatriyas of the government kingly caste, and becoming like at the Brahmin stage at that point, just naturally, beyond ambition. He now one of the constituencies that he vies with just by nature is science and technology, and so again that also makes the position that further precarious, because people in each of these realms are competing with each other for influence. The Brahmins are competing with Brahmins. The Kshatriyas are competing with Kshatriyas, and it's like no kind of mercy kind of thing. So that's the nature of it. So when Bob Marley gets into the science realm, and it's even beyond just people's intentions. It's just the nature of things. You can't say, oh, the conspiracy, or those bugger science or whatever. It's just the nature of how it is at that point. So when Bob Marley gets to that point of transcending politics and government and into that priestly caste, he's contending with the religious leaders. Preacher man, don't tell me. Okay, so he's talking, he's wrestling with the religious leaders, but perhaps he was less aware that one of the prominent factions of religious leadership that he's contending with is not actually traditional religion, but it's science and technology. And at that point in his path, he is extremely dependent upon science and technology, when he's doing his tours, when he's flying across the world, he's using science. He's depending upon science and technology, the inventions, the know-how, the influence, the foibles, the biases, and the injustices. That's all part of science and technology. So he's using that when his music is being distributed, even to this day, through the devices, and additionally science and technology. So so now he's getting into that realm. So before, where he can speak and talk about politics knowledgeably and with certain confidence, and having guidance and people who understand what he's talking about, and know, have even some experience about that generationally. Um, Uno momento, por favor. About to put the hot pot on the hard drive. That's not advisable. Um, so Bob Marley is ascending into another realm of society, of leadership within society, um, and it's different than the Kashaitri level, the government, the kingly level. It's the priestly level, and fewer people have a knowledge about the nature of that realm. So it seems, and it's very understandable. I mean, this is just part of the story. It seems that many of the people in his collective have less awareness, and this is what we learn from. Like that's part of the purpose. Like this is what is learned in that experience. Um, have less awareness and acknowledgement of that vulnerability to science and technology, because a lot of times, without having it precedingly, a lot of these things are just perceived as given. It's like, oh, we got to take a plane. How else are we going to make a tour? We got to like distribute through the records. We got to do like this. How else are we going to do it? It just seems it's such a given, because people have less of a preceding um, study and um, training or whatever else about these things. Um, but because of that, when people ascend into the influence of those realms, then becoming further vulnerable to not just the predators within that realm, who live and know the ways of that realm, but just the nature of that realm. It's just different. So, anyways, um, when Bob Marley does get to that point of being at the Brahmin level, being a Brahmin of world society, not just of Jamaica, but of world society, um, he is still um, leveraged. He is dependent upon science and technology, so that um, when things get further shaky, like when his body, his physical existence, his temporal existence, um, is called upon to do the high energy things that he's doing. Um, how do I put this? Just say it clearly as much as I can as I'm cleaning out this coffee on the spot. The bunga. To be honest, I'm uncertain what time, what hour Fajr begins at this moment. I pay attention to the light. Um, so I'm just presuming we're in the realm of Fajr at this moment. I could give the hour just so post facto people can fact check, but um, I am enough self deprecating at the moment, so I'm going to indulge in abstaining from doing that this moment. And I invite reasoning, respectful reasoning, accordingly. Um, so, talking about ascension into the Brahman level, the science and technology, and being further susceptible to the volatilities, to the I'm trying to like think of the appropriate word. It's not dangers. It's not like threats, but just the things that diminish life. And I'm trying to think of like a very, not even just objective, but just like a very natural way of articulating that experience of just again volatilities. Um, anyways, at each stage of the casts, each of the four different stages, there are different types of threats, or there are different things in the earthly experience, earthly realm, that pose and cause a diminishment of life, and things that provide a replenishment of life. Um, they're different at each of the four categories. Um, and part of the purpose of having the varnas is knowing what those are, what the threats are, what the support is, so that people can proceed accordingly. Um, when people are working in the field, things that pose immediate physical danger, the things that provide immediate physical benefit, what plants to eat, and additionally, and people who pose physical threat, people who don't. At the further levels of Kshatriyas, it's a different. The nature of threat is different. It's not necessarily who is the most physical imposing at the moment. It's psychological. It's a matter of like knowing the facades and pretenses of politics and talking and communication and the implications of those things. So it's different at each different level. And at the Brahmin level, it's also different. So, again, when somebody is born into that experience, they receive guidance from their parents, they receive guidance from their family, uncles, aunties, grandparents, relatives, cousins, friends, and additionally about how to navigate in those conditions. When one emerges from one realm into that realm within one life, within their own life, there are fewer people to provide that guidance about what to do, what not to do. And there's each one requires, each realm requires significant discipline about how to behave, what to do within those conditions. And voila, that's hot. That's the tea I just did. I'm looking for the strainer. Where'd I done put that strainer? Woody. Oh, oh, it's inside the cup. I put it inside the cup. How brilliant. Okay, fantastic. Um, so that knowledge about how to navigate in those conditions, that's part of the purpose and the benefit of the Varna system, because one learns that from before birth, what to eat, when to eat, where to eat, with whom to eat, and additionally, when and there's it's not just a matter of like fake rules or whatever. Like this is how to be in this realm. And if the people don't know how to do that, then those people become a threat just by not knowing how to do that. Um, if somebody doesn't know where to urinate and they're living out in the field and they urinate right by the water well, yo, no, that's not how we do it. That hurts everybody. So there's reasons for these rules, and there's reasons why people don't mess with people who don't know those rules, because it's a liability. It's even a threat to people who live by that way. So, and that's serious in each of the different realms. That's part of the purpose and the validity, um, and why that rigidity of apartheid is just continues in life to this day for thousands of years. And it's a continual reconciling of that, because again, the higher teaching is oneness that transcends all of that. But that oneness requires a discipline of each of those levels of how to work in the field, how to take care of the body, um, but then at the same time, how to take care of the mind, how to articulate the words, and then also how to practice the rituals, how to share the stories, excuse me, and the teachings, and the hiccups and the belches appropriately. That's what the oneness, that walk of oneness requires, is a knowledge of all four levels and a practice of all four levels. And it's very difficult. So a lot of people just find, you know what, I'm just going to do this one right here. I'm comfortable with this. I got a shorty right here who knows how to do this. Yo, we just going to make the most of this life in that respect. Same thing at the first level. Yo, this is how we do. This is who I know. This is where we're at. And you can't fault people for that. It's that, yo, that's that. It is what it is. So, but for those who have that inclination of oneness and have yet to like have that guidance of how to be in that oneness, it's a matter of understanding the disciplines within each level. So, um, anyways, so when it comes to what Bob Marley does, and when he gets into that Brahmin level of influence, but without a knowledge and without a support base, all his crew that he trusts and who walk with him a long time, even many of those kinfolk don't have a knowledge of how to even be at the Kashaitri level, and are rolling with him and trusting in him, by his leadership and how he's guided by those who do know how to be in that level. And so they're respecting him and see what he's doing, and and supporting him in that way as much as they can with as much knowledge as kinfolk can. It's so much to do at the Kashaitri level. It's so much to do at the Vyasa level. It's so much to do at the Shudra level. But to get into the Brahmin level, um, it's like shaky. It's like high altitude. Like again, like when we look at the high altitude of a mountain, like each breath becomes heavier. Let me tell it. I mean, my ascension on mountains is comparatively modest, but yo, that's the nature of it. So same thing with Brahmins. And again, one is not ultimately superior than another. It's different, but we can. It'd be interesting to consider have a conversation about like what the experiences of perhaps going the descending route of descending from the Brahmin experience into the Vaisya, and what case studies can we observe from that? Probably less notable or less renowned, at least intentionally, whatever else. Perhaps less admirable or emulated, but perhaps no less transcendent and auspicious or whatever else. But anyways, that's one of the things that is observed with the brethren of Bob Marley, um, is that path and um, that example. So when he gets into that level, he's depending upon science and technology, and when he's depending upon science and technology, without like a huge like a without like a very pronounced knowledge about how doctors live, and additionally, what doctors know and the discipline of how to be in that realm. He has knowledge about religion. He can hold his own with different religions, even if it's a modest knowledge, and relying upon other Rastafari brethren and leaders to provide that guidance. And additionally, that's one thing. But what seemed to be like blindsided was the leadership from science and technology. And it's not even a conspiracy thing about science and doctors like saying, oh, we got to get rid of Bob Marley. It's just an understanding of like that's the nature of how that realm is. And without a knowledge about how to walk in that realm, its susceptibility to the conditions, and that condition being um, having a spell and falling out whilst running in the park, and just naturally or instinctively or immediately just going to the doctor. Now that's what his advisors are. And his oldest son, Ziggy, David Marley, talks about his frustration about and questioning about the guidance that Bob Marley receives during that period about the health and medicine and like whether people had the best intentions for his well-being at that moment. So there's some recognition of that amongst his progeny and his kinfolk. Um, but when he does have that experience, and then not just a matter of having that experience, but then relies upon and reverts to the conventional knowledge, the Western medicine knowledge about those conditions. Now it's a matter of becoming further vulnerable and dependent upon. For example, if we were going to relate this to like a scenario happening at the second level, at the Kshatriya level, it's kind of like having like a like when political circumstances get difficult, like reverting to one of the political factions and just aligning with the political faction, and in doing that, becoming dependent and vulnerable to that political faction. When Bob Marley goes to the doctors, it's a matter of like, oh, now the doctors are very opportunistic. Doctors have a tremendous knowledge. We have to respect that. But at the same time, doctors also have a very self-involved motivation to continue doing what doctors do. And one of those things to keep that doing is diagnose things. And when seeing an opportunity to do that, boom, there it is. And then that power of suggestion is very difficult to resist once a person avails oneself to that position of being informed or being told or whatever else, of being the subject of that leadership of the doctor. So when Bob Marley and his crew, when he's advised and taken to the doctors and saying, yo, what's going on with his body? Why did he just pass out? Now it's a matter of subjecting themselves, of submitting to the realm, the will, the guidance and leadership of the doctors of science and technology. And it's not just like a one isolated kind of experience. It's because, again, to go on that tour from Madison Square Garden, and then the intention was to continue around the continent, have to use the buses, have to use the transportation, have to use the equipment, the sound systems. All that is science and technology. So it's not just a matter of that isolated incident of going to the doctors. It's a culture. It's a collective discipline of relying upon science and technology and the doctors. And because of that, relying upon the suggestion, being significantly influenced by the suggestion of the doctors, and being seen and being recognized as competition amongst the science and doctors. Because when you're talking about Rastafari, you're talking about natural healing, you're talking about herb, Kaya, got to have Kaya now. That's a direct competition, just as Preacher Man Don't Tell Me was a contention with religious leadership. Got to have Kaya now is contention with the doctors, and Western medicine and science and technology. So to go to the same kinfolk, it's like saying Preacher Man Don't Tell Me, and then going to the preacher man and saying, yo, help me out. Now that's not shade. It's not. I mean, one can call it hypocritical or contradictory. That's the nature of life. Contradiction. Welcome to life. But just being mindful of that, and then people say, "Oh, preacher man." Preacher man says, "Oh, you want to talk to me now? Oh, okay. You were saying this a minute ago, but now it's like this. Well, guess what?" And then again, science says, "Oh, you want to have kaya now, but then you want us to heal you or this and the other. How? Guess what? That's the nature of it. And it's not hate, not shade. It's just a matter of understanding the nature of it. So, with that knowledge, like making decisions today that are further optimal in terms of our well-being. But that also means letting certain things go, so that we avoid having that vulnerability, that susceptibility, that submission, and that dependence on those that are further hostile or that are in an environment or have tendencies that are hostile towards certain ways of being, certain natural ways of being, particularly. So those are some of the explanation, the articulation about who kills Bob Marley, what kills Bob Marley, in addition with, again, blessed love and peace to Bob Marley. And we give thanks and praise to the Most High for the guidance and the inspiration and the spiritual awakening that Robert Nesta Marley, Bob Marley, provides to I and I. And the guidance and the inspiration that Robert Nesta Marley, Bob Marley, provides in studying and learning further about the teachings of His Majesty Haile Selassie I and Her Majesty Waizaro and the further teachings of our ancestors, prophets, and sages from around the world, from all of our respective walks in these roads of creation. So we give thanks for that. And giving thanks, part of giving thanks is genuinely learning and then practicing the knowledge and the wisdom that is gleaned from those studies and gleaned from those teachings and sharings, and then sharing that, continuing to walk as much as we can in this day and age and this life, and sharing that with the next generations, 7 generations and beyond, door for door. So that's the purpose of me sharing this. That's the purpose of me doing this at this moment. And me responding at 5:21 a.m. Cinco veinte uno. Because to be honest, I think there are a lot of things, a lot of topics that I am called upon to address at this moment in terms of village building at this very moment, about economic building, co-ops, and additionally, and a lot of different topics to reason on at this moment. Practical, urgent topics. But again, it's a matter of that, there's a time and a place. 5 a.m. is most often not the time and not the place. So I do that at this moment because I have energy. I am awake, and now I'm about to get some coffee again, God willing, and at this moment I'm supposed to be preparing for an AM prayer meditation and getting into the routine again. So at some point, like I said, the calling to share this becomes very prominent, and the influence, the power of suggestion of the youngsters, children and progeny and future generations is very strong, and it is appropriate, it is a blessing to respond to the solicitations accordingly. And it is appropriate and it is a blessing to respond to those solicitations, to that calling, at appropriate times and appropriate place. Now, I ain't blaming nobody for nothing, because ultimately it's myself that I have to look at. And any susceptibility that I have to the suggestions is my own doing. So I have to look into that as well, and I continue to work on that. So I'm pointing, oh, you ga 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 ga. I articulate this particularly for myself. Sometimes it's actually very helpful to hear what we're thinking, like what we're working on. When we hear that being said, oftentimes it's helpful just to talk with somebody so that person can provide audience, so that there's a witness to what we are articulating. And perhaps that's some of what this is right here. Because when we hear ourselves talk about what we're thinking, and we hear it back from just the vibration of our voice, and when we hear it, it's easier to like process and like observe it from another perspective and say, okay, that's where that is. So that might be a lot of what this is too. However, one thing I articulate just again for the purpose of perhaps that is one of the vulnerabilities or one of the susceptibilities to the suggestion for sharing these types of joints is that in not sharing it, it kind of stays in the mind. It's to like continue like, yo, talk about this, yo, talk about this, yo, talk about this, yo, talk about this. And that influences the routine from day to day. So that's one of the reasons why I do this here. And like I said, there's stuff I'm not talking about at this moment that I am called upon to talk about. But it's not as there's less of a kind of like a force or whatever for me to actually respond and do that. So what is beneficial is to identify periods during the week, during the month, to have this conversation, so that when there is a calling, he says, okay, yeah, well, we'll do that, but here's when we plan to do that, or here's when we do that, and here's the next time we plan on doing it, God willing. So we're working on that routine, that regularity. We've been doing it all for many years. We're dealing with we're dealing with conditions. I'm just thinking to myself, it's been a minute since I see the night crawlers, the flying squirrels. The kinfolk are very active. Actually, earlier put out some peanuts, and the flying squirrel kinfolk are going kind of like wild over them peanuts. I imagine them peanuts might be going at this point. Take a look. Odie, odie, odie. Yeah, it looks like they go. So maybe that's why it's quiet right now. So regularity, routine. Mondays 9 a.m. to 12 a.m. I say 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. Nueve a doce. Atlantic Standard Time, which essentially at the moment is Eastern Standard Time. Um, this is an hour. This is a window within the week to reason. And we're not recording these joints, God willing. We're just going to have a conversation, God willing. So we're making it further temporal, further at this moment in this life kind of situation. So it's not for the purpose of archive or whatever else, but now it's conversation, it's coordination. I mentioned before, like methodologies, ongoing, continual, next step, um, organizing and implementation, manifestation, experience, and continuation, teaching and sharing of village in the actual physical um, experience and sense. So that's another topic about the next steps along those lines. That's one thing I'm called upon in sharing. Another one is, again, co-op, particularly within the context of Rastafari. We do ethics-based co-ops, fair trade, vegan, organic. Through the years, it's very challenging, even when being successful and organizing kinfolk, getting contributions and investments to make purchases, finding distributors and suppliers that are doing things in an ethical way, and getting all that done. Even when getting that started, some of the things that we experienced in recent years is that after years of putting that together and painstaking day in, day out labor, study, coordination, conversation, and additionally of putting that together and then actually getting it done, like getting a shipment in and sharing that, and additionally, and then planning for the next one, the law is done changed. Embargoes, serious in the United States, like trade, like when trying to get through customs, and additionally, nah, then no agreement. Then the borders are closed. Or that was one. That's one situation. At least one situation. Another situation is suppliers being shut down by competitors, particularly big business type joints, whatever. Governments making the conditions further difficult for our suppliers. So yeah, it's serious. Just do things in an honest, ethical, just way. Uh, After years, amidst years of diligence and study and going without, like scrapping, saving money and whatever else, yeah, even during that period, or resources, materiality to make the purchase, because it costs one way or the other. After doing all of that, then still getting that, it becomes further difficult. It becomes actually ridiculous, and it's not even beyond ridiculous. It's just like, um, I won't say insane, because again, projection, but it just becomes silly, like beyond ridiculous in terms of like the conditions of government and society, and additionally to like put those types of obstructions about just being fair and ethical. It's like, okay, yeah, seriously, is that serious? Is going to be that unjust, that like ridiculously oppressive? Okay, this is not going to last very long. We're going to have to take a step back and just let this fall out and wait for the next joint to return, because yeah, this is beyond ridiculous. So that's where things been in recent years. Now we're getting back into that point of like, okay, like things are falling out. So now let's work on another thing. So in that respect, in terms of a co-op, we're looking at like particularly working with Rastafari kinfolk, seeing what the infrastructure is in terms of supplying and additionally. So that's another thing to talk about, to reason about the details of that. And then we also have like what we do with our schoolhouse, and I did put water. Um, And amidst all this, yo, I'm going into music and language. That's where my regularity, where my guidance is, because at this point, like, it's not even a matter of going out and like trying to encourage people to do stuff or trying to inspire people to do stuff. We do that for years. We've shared what we got to share, what we've been given. We share that thoroughly through years to through this day. So at at this point, it's just a matter of like when the hearts and minds of kinfolk are inclined to do the work, to do the discipline. Huh, that's another thing to talk about, letting go of cars, recognizing the warfare that's going on. Um, not again, not between tribes, not between religions, um, spiritually, and that's not hyperbole. That's not metaphor. That's actual. The warfare that's going on, and the most proximate way of articulating that in an earthly sense is the warfare between imperialism and nature, and how much people are enveloped in the imperialism without actually recognizing or admitting that. But at the same time, in that warfare, and this is not calling imperialism evil per se, but just understanding part of the nature of imperialism is the destruction of nature. Um, so in that competition, warfare, how much people, regular, ordinary, beloved people, are involved in the destruction of nature and oblivious, not admitting it, not recognizing it, and very dependent upon it. Cars are a prime example of that. How much pollution, not just talking about air pollution. And I remember in the 80s, we talk about acid rain and all that other type of stuff, and not talking about smog and all that. We're talking about killing the trees, killing the vegetation, killing the plant life through pollution. And we look at the number of the different causal factors. We can look at herbicides, the pesticides that people put in their lawns, and that having an accumulated and chronic and immediate effect, adverse effect on the plant life around across the board, in urban, suburban, and further areas, and so we're seeing it when trees are being like mass cut down. That's warfare right there, and it's a matter of acknowledging that. It's not just like business as usual. It's not just a matter of like, oh, that's just what way cities are. No, that's a warfare. It's deteriorating life, and even in one's own life, each one's own life, and being too drunk with science and technology, and that's not shade on science and technology, but being too drunk with these devices and the conveniences of the inventions, to recognize how it is deteriorating each being's life. Um, and when the suggestion of having distance from the devices, from the inventions, from the science and technology, that's perceived as threat. That's perceived as warfare. And there's hostilities of, I mean, it's the exact scenario of somebody, of an alcoholic, and explaining to the alcoholic about how like drinking the alcohol is hurting the alcoholic's own life, and when suggesting the alcoholic to let go of the alcohol, then the alcoholic becoming belligerent. Oh, you can't take my alcohol. Da 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 da. Or opium. We talk about the opium wars between Britain and China, over about almost 200 years ago at this point. Same thing. The intoxicant, the prominent intoxicant that is deteriorating the mind and deteriorating the body at this moment around across society, across all the varnas, is science and technology. And that's not, hey, we there's a need for science and technology. There's benefit, there's a purpose for science and technology, just as there's purpose for coca leaves, and there's a purpose for herb, for marijuana. There's a purpose and a benefit, a medicine within tobacco, hiji. There's purpose within all these things. But when it's excessive, and when people become so dependent upon it, um, and 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 um, and it starts to deteriorate life accordingly, then the it's not medicinal. It's poison, and that's where science and technology is at this moment. And people are very drunk with that. And it's not, and that's not shade on people. It's not a hate towards people. It's recognizing like people the I actually see it. It's people being drunk, half drunk, at least half drunk, with the science and technology. I'm rambling now. I'm riffing and going on. Here, have some of the science and technology. Coffee in a cup, mass produced whilst recording this. Yes, it's not hate. It's not shade on science and technology. It's recognizing the pain and affliction that people are experiencing all across the board, and the difficulty that people have in acknowledging that and finding a genuine remedy. Um, so to articulate the experience of what is observed of the drunkenness that people are experiencing. Now, I myself have been drunk. I know what that's like. I've drinking alcohol to the point of being drunk. And I know a number of the different stages of being drunk. And I know there's an initial buzz, and that's a very pleasurable experience, and lightheartedness and camaraderie and everything else like that. And then there's further stages beyond that. And I'm known during over 20 years ago, put it up 30 years ago at this point. I'm known for not knowing, not being able to hold my alcohol, and cats like being frustrated with me. My frat brothers, in addition, that yo, don't let Peter drink, cause yo, he don't know how to hold his he don't know how to hold his liquor. That's facts. At least 30 years ago, to be honest, because at this point I don't drink. I don't drink at all. And even when I did drink, even in the past 10 years, upon my spiritual path, that's a whole other story. I actually am able to hold my liquor because at that point I had learned about meditation. I didn't drink to that for years before that point, 10, 15 years ago, so that when I did drink, it wasn't even a matter of like being sloppy drunk or whatever. It was just a matter of just like being further and further incapacitated. But my point is that I know what it's like to be intoxicated. I know what it's like to be drunk, and I know the different stages. And I know one particular stage is like being half drunk and of like being aware, like, oh yo, yeah, I'm not functioning fully. I'm not doing. I don't. I'm not controlling myself right now. I'm vulnerable. I'm susceptible to what the conditions are at this moment. Things are cloudy. Things are confused. I'm unable to think coherently at this moment. I know what that's like. It's been a long time since I've been like. No, actually, no. When it's late at night, even within the past year, even probably in recent weeks, I don't get drunk. I don't do that. But I still know what that's like because fatigue. I get so tired. I'm half asleep, and I'm doing stupid things. Just in the past week, a few years ago, for example, talking about being half drunk, not even off of like alcohol or drugs or anything. So I've never done like hard drugs or whatever. I smoke herb, that's medicine. I've smoked it past excess, so that's poison. I've done that, and learned better since then. It's been a long time for that. But anyways, just a few years ago, on the topic of being half drunk, just off of fatigue of working on a regular basis, even within recent weeks. But a couple years ago, there's occasion where um, the garbage disposal was out. I had when I was awake or during the daytime or whatever. Um, Maybe I was probably fatigued, but still had some idea what I was doing. But I poured out the pan. I had some like probably some oil or something like that. I was frying stuff or whatever. So I poured some of that, not a lot, but some of it into the garbage disposal, and then put that in, and then that pretty much that was a done deal. If anybody knows how like the garbage disposals work or whatever, you don't put oil. Don't put oil in the garbage. Don't put it in the sink. That clogs the sink up. And so that's what happened. The sink got clogged up. And at some point, I was dealing with like not having a garbage disposal, having to clean it out. And actually, that's what the situation is right now. Um, but it's for a different reason, and that's what the purpose of the story is. So that was first. That was what happens initially, and so eventually, again, a few years ago, the garbage disposal is replaced, and so then it's like, oh, that's convenient. That's nice. Now we have something that works. I don't have to worry about dealing with a clogged sink all the time. And the garbage disposal, ooh, it works very nicely. Okay, cool. Now, at some point, I was also at that moment making preparations of making tofu, having had some soybeans. There's the robins. It was hours. It's been over. It's been about an hour since the robins first get vocal, and now the robins are flying. It's still dark, but just observing that. The Robins are saying something right now. Yo, they're making plans. They're arranging. Like I've seen them before. When Robins make this call, they're like calling up each other to like, yo, let's go hunt for some food together. Like let's buddy up. So, anyways, um, that was the garbage disposal a year ago, and that's that's what initially happened. So when the garbage disposal is replaced, one day I was like, again, I'm in the mindset of making tofu, and that involves having a blender and uh, preparing the tofu first so that it's softened, and additionally the soybeans, and then blending it into a mix to make the tofu. So that's what my mindset at the moment. Generally, making plans. I have yet to do it, but that was the preparation at that moment, the mindset. And then also similarly to that, doing other things with the blender, and just having that mindset. So on this particular night, I had been soaking some black beans for the purpose of I make peas and rice on a regular basis during that period. Have a regular practice and behavior of soaking beans overnight, to prepare to cook. Um, so on this particular night, like on this particular day, like I think I left the beans out for a while. Well, I'll just like give the brief version of this. So yeah, let's wrap this up. It was late on one night, half asleep. Had left the beans out or perhaps whatever, and like, okay, yeah, no, these are past the point of being cooked or whatever. So I gotta like throw these out. But rather than throwing them out in the garbage, like in the whole composting is another thing, but rather than throwing it, I'm like, oh wait, the garbage disposal works. It's brand new. The garbage disposal can just like chop these up like a blender, and then put it on the sink. It's brand new. It's not oil. It's not going to clog up the sink. Um, there it is. So I put the beans. I'm half asleep. That's my rationale during that moment. Drunk with fatigue, half thinking. And so I put the beans into the sink, turned on the garbage disposal. The garbage disposal turned on for a millisecond, and then just stopped. And basically, the beans short circuited the garbage disposal. So now the garbage disposal is out. And that was a couple years ago. So now we're dealing with another. Now it's not clogged up like it was before because it's not oil. Eventually, I cleared the beans out of it or whatever, so the sink works and everything. But now the garbage disposal is just out. Anyways, point being, I know what it's like to be intoxicated. I know what it's like to be half conscious of like walking and doing basic things, but at the same time, a lot of the mind is gone. A lot of the mind is being influenced by something else, like these joints. So I know what that's like. I know what it's like to be drunk from alcohol. I know what it's like to be high from marijuana. I know what it's like to be high off marijuana beyond a comfort level. And dealing with that and not being able to stop, not being able to control at that moment because it's already done. Just kind of let that wave ride. I know what that's like. So when I see people today, for recent years, but particularly today, and at this moment, and escalating, when I see people today walking around with the devices, and like fixated, like they need to look at their devices just to have a peace of mind to deal with what's around them, whether it's on the bus, whether it's driving a vehicle, whether it's walking to school or to work or whatever else. People needing to look at devices just to like function and but only half function, being able to walk and do the mechanics of that, but having that, I see that intoxication. I see that half consciousness. I see the influence of whatever they're watching, then the dependency, people call addiction. We're not going to go into the whole round, but just the dependency of those things and how it influences people. When people, like, if they have a bad thought, oh, I have to go to the device. Oh, there's a ring, there's a notification. I have to answer that. People have an emotional, physical, mental dependency. Even we can lightweight say spiritual. Even myself talking about these things and having reasoning sessions on the computer like this, having these dependencies on devices. That's intoxication, and that's how much people are dependent, how much people's lives and well-being are dependent or perceived as dependent upon the relationship with the devices. And it's the devices, the same realm of the phones, the mobile phones, the internet, the computers, is also connected with the cars. It's science and technology, and it's not hating science and technology. The villains are not science and technology. It's ourselves. Science and technology is just a mechanism, is an instrument for us hurting ourselves and for us helping ourselves. And so it's a matter of us being able to distinguish what the hurtful is and what the helpful is, and then make prudent decisions and prudent discipline, behavior, actions, decisions that are optimally healthy. So what we observe is that, particularly for these things that are causing pollution, like the cars, like the herbicides and pesticides that people have put on lawns, and additionally, that is killing trees, and it's killing the plant life. It's killing all life around us. And the necessity, the eventuality is stopping that, is letting that go, is minimizing it. And that's very difficult for people to recognize at this moment, um, because people are just like people are fixated on the devices. People are fixated on the cars as well, and it's the same scenario as telling the alcoholic, "Yo, you need to stop drinking." Yo, people, you need to stop driving. Plain and simple facts. That's life. Whether you like it or not, you need to stop driving. People, you're killing yourselves. We're killing ourselves. People, stop driving. Start living. Plain and simple. Um, sober up. Recognize it's killing life. It's killing yourselves. It's killing ourselves. Stop driving. Start living. It's difficult. People's senses of liberty, of sense of value, sense self value, are very much attached to the cars. And we've already known what a harmful thing cars are, not even just environmentally, financially. Yo, how expensive cars are to purchase, how much cars are to maintain. People spending further on their cars than they do on their residences. That's how much people are emotionally, mentally, physically, spiritually attached to cars. And that's why people are comparatively oblivious and obtuse when it comes to letting go of cars, because people are so much attached to it. And there are benefits that cars provide. There is a certain necessity, but it's the excess of it is poison, and it's killing life. It's killing life. So it's going to stop one way or the other. The alcoholic is going to stop drinking one way or the other. Um, so, anyways, those are some things I'm called upon to articulate. Now it goes further than that, because we're looking at a discipline of not talking to people who don't fast. If somebody only talking to people who fast from utilizing cars, whether it's only like 3 or 4 days a week, like only talking, literally just talking to people who only fast from cars. That's how serious things are. It's a state of emergency. It is warfare going on. People are killing life itself. People are killing life itself. And one of the main culprits is cars. One of the main causes of death is car accidents. And people are, it's like, don't, again, people are half drunk. So people are like incapacitated to respond responsibly to these conditions. And it becomes a point of just like, okay, we need to keep a distance, because just like kinfolk who get belligerent and drunk and drinking and driving, how about that? You keep a distance from that. Yo, don't go to the bar. Don't mess with the cats like that. Yo, that's how it is at this point with driving. Serious. And that's just one thing. And that's one thing that is very easily, to be honest, it's actually very easily remediable. It's very easy just to do that in 1 year. In each city, in 1 year, instituting a campaign, instituting a program where just like people have those buy back guns and everything, yo, buy back the cars and give people housing credits, give people, establish free public transportation across the board. Don't worry about paying for nothing. You get to where you need to go with the public transportation. And then investment, subsidization, public works for the infrastructure of the public transportation. Make it convenient, make it safe, make it comfortable, make it relevant, make it visible. Yo, right now the buses are coffins. The windows are blocked up with advertisements and designs and everything. People can't even see out the window. Literally cannot see out the window, even where their stop is. They have to rely upon people to notice the notification, the audio thing, or just like have some semblance of looking through the little peek holes to see where the stop is. That's how ridiculous the conditions are at this moment. That's how predatory and hostile the conditions are. Not even intentionally hostile, but effectively hostile. Just because if somebody punches somebody else in the jaw and didn't mean to like hurt that person or whatever else, it doesn't mean it doesn't have the same effect. It doesn't mean it's any less hostile. When somebody's driving a car and rams into another person and kills that other person, doesn't mean that's not murder. It's still murder, even if we can talk about manslaughter and everything else like that. But at some point, when people know, just like with the bull that gores the person, when people know, have a knowledge about what they're doing and what happens, even if they don't intend it, but they put themselves in a position where it's happening, then that's further responsibility. That's murder right there. Car accidents are murder today because people know what the conditions are. When people are texting and driving and everything else like that, have a car accident, they don't have any malice. Maybe that's the thing. People don't need to have malice to have hostility, because indifference is enough for it to be hostile and for it to be murder. It doesn't have to be intentionally malice towards somebody, but just to be woefully indifferent. I didn't even meet that person. I have nothing against them. They're one of my own kind. Why would I want to hurt that person? Okay, we see that, yeah, but still, you know what? You were doing that and you knew better. You're guilty. You're responsible. And I'm not trying to pass judgment and put the weight of that. It's a matter of waking up to the actuality, because I'm not the judge. I'm not the one who passes sentence. It's beyond me. I am sharing the information and the knowledge so people can make decisions further healthily and with further levity. Stop driving and start living. At least 3 or 4 days of the week fast as a lifestyle from today continuing. That's what we can humbly call kinfolk towards. That's what we're called to call kinfolk towards. So anyways, that's just some of the conversation in that respect. That I'm not supposed to be having at this moment, because I'm supposed to be sleeping and preparing for prayer and meditation, so that these words have further intensity, substance, heavenly presence. That's one of the things that prayer and meditation do. It's for me, my homeland is heaven. That's literally my homeland. And I return to my homeland when I go into the dreaming at night, and when I go to the dreaming in the day and naps and everything. I return to my homeland when I do prayer and meditation. And when I go to my homeland and receive and experience that beyond the conscience and beyond this earthly experience, when I return, there's energy, there's guidance, there's healing, there's well-being, and there's value with that. And so when I share these things and I continue to walk life by the grace of the Most High, hallelujah, alhamdulillah, baruch Hashem, Jayom, Shishit, Mado, when I share these things, there's energy, there's intensity. And when I do that regularly, then there it is. If it's been a while since I do that, the intensity of that hit of healing is lessened accordingly. So that's just the nature of it. That's one of the benefits of doing it regularly. And the irony, the paradox, the beautiful paradox is when kinfolk try to obstruct that by means other than my own doing, my own volition. Meaning, like, when people endeavor of locking me up, and additionally, that actually intensifies the hit. So that's the paradox. The thing that diminishes the hit of is things that I do of my own volition, and how I lend myself into temptation of straying from the path, of being further into the earth for whatever reason, in whatever way. When it's been a while since I visit my homeland, our homeland. That's where we're all from. We're all from heaven. So when I visit our homeland, um, that's the thing that lessens the intensity. So susceptibility to doing things like this that are taking away from that routine, and additionally that lessens the intensity of the sharing of healing. So um, me talking for 2 hours on this joint, um, it has its purpose, and it's actually that's one of the reasons why I prepared in terms of the storage joint, because I actually did this in the past week. I did a joint on a different topic, whatever, spur of the moment, and it did not take, because by the time I had finished it, it had gone beyond the capacity of the storage on the computer. And so, in utilizing this particular software, when that happens, it doesn't let me know until after, when I stop, and it's like, oh yeah, by the way, yeah, like none of this went through. So that's one of the reasons why I took the precaution beforehand, so presumably that it does go through. And anyway, all right. I think I've addressed the basic topics for the moment to share. There are additional topics, there are additional projects that I'm called upon. Every time I walk out into this beautiful forest and the beautiful kindred and all the beautiful challenges and tryings of patience and blessings and conversations and enlightenment and inspiration and impressiveness, being impressed with what kinfolk share, being humbled by what kinfolk share with me. Every time I walk out and experience that, I'm influenced, and I'm 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 very sensitive. I'm very sensitive to the conversations, so that when I talk with people, then I have like, oh yo, this is an idea, yo, let me try to share this so they kinfolk can do that. So that then I start thinking about that, and so that takes me away from the concentration of what I'm doing myself, and so I have to be mindful of that. Um, and part of the reason why I get, um, we can call it distracted or tangential or whatever, is because I also have an obligation of responding to what people's needs are, and what people share with me. And I have an intrinsic responsibility just as everybody else does, but I also have an earthly and a conventional responsibility because I am bestowed with knowledge about how things work. And we can get enveloped in the ego of that, of like, oh, I've just got so much and I'm so blessed and I've got a responsibility, and that's a little bit of the hubris and the egoism or whatever. So I have to be mindful of that, but also, like, legit, I am provided with certain knowledge, and kinfolk have provided me the considerable support through my life to attain that knowledge with the understanding, the commensurate obligation of sharing that back. Now, we do that. We've done that thoroughly, perhaps excessively, because a lot of times kinfolk take that knowledge and then use it for scrap, just like, yo, what can we get for this? And not utilizing it in the proper way, because the knowledge requires discipline, and cats might have a lot of interest in getting knowledge about how to get some benefits, but in terms of of getting discipline to actually long term practice that knowledge, cats are less inclined. So that when cats get that knowledge initially without doing the discipline beforehand, just like, yo, okay, who's gonna buy this knowledge that we got, and then how much can we get for it? Because we ain't trying to do the discipline. So, anyways, this sharing. I'm rambling at this point. I'm running my mouth. Trying to think of what is it I'm trying to share at the moment before wrapping this joint up. Um, Family, wife, still a priority. Still working on that. Recognizing that any woman that I marry at this moment, I have a need for a gentle and nurturing woman. Um, and also recognizing that I leave society. I've left society. I hold on to my relations. I honor my relations, but I've left society, across the board, tribe, ethnicity. I'm out the society game. I'm in this life, and I continue with my relations, in a genuine, loving, thorough way. Continue with my relations. Now, how can that be? Wait, because people have this perception of like going forth, like a sadhu, is like a categorical cutoff. Like that's it. Okay, don't have no talk with anybody that you knew in your previous life. That's one way of going forth. But there are multitude of ways of going forth. Jesus still talks with his mother. The Buddha still identifies as Kapilabhati. Sakya, as with the Sakya clan, the Buddha rolls with his sangha, with Ananda and his other bhikshus by name, recognizing the distinction thereof. So he still has relations in this earthly realm. So there's still an earthly life, and there's still earthly relationship. Even the beggar's bowl is an ambition, going out into the day and expecting to get some food to sustain life. So it's just a matter of where people draw the line. And where we draw the line includes still being a householder, still having spouse, still procreating, still having sexual relations, still bringing children into this life and teaching the children accordingly. So it's a different way of going forth. It's legit and thoroughly going forth, and there's a legit, thorough discipline that's involved within it. But it doesn't require celibacy. And there are examples of this. Again, we can look at the tribes of Israel as an example of this, as a historic, earthly example of this, and a continuation of this lineage, because that's what we are. We can look at Jainism, again, because that's what we are. And we can look at other traditions as well, particularly those that in the initial stages of the beginning of a religiosity. It's very much in the similar ilk of being householders that have gone forth from the contemporary society. So that's where we are. Beyond the exclusive allegiances to any ethnicity, even Afrocentricity, even as Rastafari. Yes, we are Pan-African. Yes, we follow the teachings of His Majesty Haile Selassie I and Her Majesty Waizara. And yes, we honor and follow the teachings of Marcus Garvey and further. But part of that adherence is also honoring and recognizing the teachers of those teachers, and also additional teachers that teach the same truth, because that's the nature of who we are. Honoring our ancestors means honoring all our ancestors of Earth, because that's who we are, whether you like it or not, whether we like it or not. That's who we are. And so recognizing that to this day, there has yet to be a community that does that genuinely honors all our ancestors. We have to go forth from the whole of society, staying in relationship, still loving, continuing to love, still cooperating as much as possible, mutually, respectfully. But we've gone forth. We're part of another kind of way of being. We're not superior, we're not inferior, just different. That's how we are. Now, I recognize that within myself, and any wife I marry, any wife that I continue in a relationship with, has it. That's just part of it. And for years, there's been like a kind of like a wrestling kind of match. When I've had potential relationships, and additionally, there's been kind of this, well, maybe we can convert him to being our way, and then I can think to my, well, I'll just like teach her how to be my way. And it's been a very kind of quiet, kind of like subtle kind of expectation, whatever. But the actuality is like it's I have to be who I am, and any woman who is inclined to of being with me has to be in this way, because it's not my way. This is the way that I am in. And there's no getting out of it. I've tried to like accommodate and something, but it's just not happening. It's just not happening, because it's not. It is not. It is not. So, anyways, I recognize that, and it's a big step. It's a big step to call a woman into, and I'm learning that. I'm learning how to communicate. I'm learning, because I try to be as dutiful. Even just today. All right. Yeah. I'm just venting now. I've gone from rambling to venting, but I think there is some benefit and some purpose. But I'll say, like, even just today, just having a conversation with young, attractive woman, who communicates, or just has the vibration is just, yo, we're feeling each other. It's like, let's talk. Yo, what's going on? And there seems like immediate amenability and affection and affinity and everything else like that. But at the same time, I know that me making a solicitation for her to join me in my walk is a huge step for her at where she's at this moment. There's appropriateness of talking with parents, and additionally, but I also know that from experience, like, often parents are enveloped in the same things of society. And so even when parents try to be honest and try to be like responsible, first, parents have a responsibility for the well-being of their daughter, just like that's legit. And so we have to honor and respect that. But at the same time, very often, particularly within conditions of society today, but in any day, very often parents are enveloped in corruptions, and additionally that prevent the parents from seeing and recognizing what the most beneficial things are generally, but particularly for even for the daughter. And so oftentimes when looking at a criteria for a suitor or a husband for the daughter, just look at what characteristics are most compatible with the same corruptions that the parents are involved in or enveloped in. And when there's a person, a man who is involved in a way that is, I don't want to say, oh, it's less corrupt or whatever, but is different from those perceived favorable characteristics, then the parents can be unduly obstructive. And that's also presumptuous and judgmental as well, because there's all purposefulness. But anyways, point is, it gets complicated in that respect, to the point where there are occasions when it's beneficial and appropriate not to consult with the parents, and that's we have to be very mindful, because that's when I mention that, that's some of what's involved in terms of inviting a woman to take that step, because then it means like walking from her parents' house into this life. Now, it's the intention from my side is honorable, and it's not a matter of just like, oh, this is just like a pretense for having sexual relations and then abandoning her. That's not the intentions. And even though that's not the intention, I have to be mindful that what is not the intention can eventually lead to the actuality, even though that's not the intention. And so I have to be extremely, like, multiply mindful of that. And so it's serious, because that's huge violation. And anyways, recognizing that, the example I was talking about in terms of like, there are occasions when it's appropriate not to consult with the parents, when the parents are abusive, when the parents are trafficking their daughter, putting their daughter into prostitution, and additionally, and abusing the daughter. Those are appropriate occasions where you don't have to get the consent of the parents. Don't consult with the parents. Help the sister now, and it's pervasive within society, at different levels of intensity or whatever, in terms of exploitation of children, and additionally serious. So it becomes a very complicated walk or negotiation about what's appropriate. And additionally, if you think about it in like old school terms, like traditional, that still exists today, but it's difficult to see that within postmodern society. But in a traditional way of life, looking at life in a traditional way, when a woman is walking by herself, that's like huge vulnerability. That's a huge advertisement. There's a presumption of her just being a prostitute if she's just simply walking by herself in public, in a traditional way, in a traditional lens perspective. That's a prostitute right there, because when people know the nature of a woman, and how strong and powerful a woman is, how strong and powerful the sexuality of a woman is, how influential a woman is concerning relationships, and additionally, such that it's very beneficial for her own protection and for the protection of others, for her to be in company with somebody else, just in public, whether it's walking with another sister, whether it's walking with a man, whether it's her brother, whether it's her husband, whether it's her father, even if it's her cousin, but her being in somebody else's presence, because she is so powerful, because she is so influential, that when she's not with somebody else, that means that's presumed that, okay, she's doing something that's be careful, because she can get dudes caught up quick. That's just the presumption. That's the perception, because that's the actuality in a traditional sense when people are in those conditions. So that in today's society, when women are walking around by themselves, it's just seems like, it's women's liberation. Women can do what women want to do, because that's the perception within culture, and that's how much a lot of cultures, postmodern culture, has devolved into like just a normalcy of prostitution that is perceived and rationalizes that, because people have fallen. We all have been enveloped in the pimp talk along those lines. But the actuality is that it's still the same thing. Women are very powerful. The sexuality of women are very powerful. And the exploitation of women is very powerful as well, and very prominent and very proximate. So when a woman is walking by herself, and this is so difficult, but it's facts. When a woman is walking by herself, um, a woman is so much important to provide care and respect and support and protection for the well-being of women, for the well-being of all kinfolk, and particularly for women, for children, for elders, for all kinfolk. It's essential, it's important, it's paramount. So that when a woman is by herself, even today at this moment, um, I'll say it. It is appropriate to call into question the care that that woman is receiving from her parents. Seriously, even if when she's in her 20s, 30s, or whatever else, if she's walking by herself, the care that she's experiencing from her loved ones, categorically, seriously, and I'm pointing at all directions. That's the nature of life itself. So, all right, I'm going way out, but I'll try to just finish this joint up because again, there's benefit in sharing this. So, when a man finds a woman today, at this moment, in public, by herself, and has an interest, an honorable, genuine, honest interest in marriage with her, and you say, well, come on, you just look at a woman. Yes, come on, nature, it's primal, it's instinctive. It's a matter of proceeding in that way in an honorable, socially compatible, and responsible way. But yes, a man, the interest of having sex with a woman intrinsically is an interest in being married with that woman. It's a matter of being responsible, having mindfulness of that. And let me tell it, because I'm still working on it in terms of speaking experientially, properly experientially. So, anyways, yes, when a man has that interest at the very moment, and if she's by herself at that moment, it is extremely relevant to question what kind of care is being provided for that woman at that moment from her parents, from her family, from her teachers, from the people around her, whether she's employed or boss or whatever. But if she's alone at that moment, what is the care that is being provided to her at that moment properly, so that when a man does have an interest in marriage with her at that moment, who he talks with, who he consults with, who he negotiates with, for in that process, in an honest process. Because if that woman is not receiving proper care and support and protection from others, anybody who's presuming or has a pretense or a facade of providing that care, whether it's her parents, teachers, employers, or what, or otherwise, when that conversation is being had by a man who has an interest in her, that conversation is not the most honest. And so the requirements, the conditions, the criteria that the influencers around the woman call upon the man to provide are not the most favorable, of not the best not in the best interest of the woman herself, because the people are not providing the optimal care for that woman, because the people have left her to her own devices on the streets, in public. It doesn't necessarily have to be explicit, outright prostitution, but it's very insufficient protection and care for the woman. Um, it's facts. It's facts. It's facts. People can hate people. We can reason about that. Let's respectfully reason about that. But when we be honest about the nature of women, the power of women, the power of the sexuality of women, and the care, we can talk about men and additionally, but men have a different nature. And we can talk about men have generally speaking, we can reason about this. This is one of the recent topics of reasoning, but men are generally physically stronger than women. Can we agree about that being facts? Generally speaking, men are stronger physically than women. Okay. How about this? Women generally are stronger mentally than men. How about that? Oh, is that a little bit snarky? Does that kind of seem to contradict myself? How can women be vulnerable in terms of being out in public, uh, individually, but still be stronger mentally? Yo, figure that one out. Let's talk about that. But that's facts. Now, that being said, that's only some of the components of an individual's existence in this life. Body, mind. We also have heart and we also have spirit. So there are the different types of strengths and there are also different types of weaknesses and vulnerabilities. And there are different types of protection. So when a man is walking out, he has a physical strength, and it doesn't mean he has invisibility, because we know there are toolies out there. There are women who have weapons. They can do things all nastily to dudes. So that's that. But traditionally and continually, men have a way of being in a responsibility of being a walking, so that the same questions are not made upon a man, because the man doesn't have the same powers that a woman does, being dolo out in the street, and additionally. So that's one thing. Um, Anyways, the point for this joint was just recognizing the relationship of the parents, and that when a woman is by herself, to question the care that she is receiving from her family accordingly. That's facts, and I'm pointing at myself, because it applies to everybody. Uh, and it's beneficial to recognize that, because when a man does have an interest in a woman, does want to meet a woman, doesn't want to not just get the number, but yo, prepare for marriage, have the contract available, and has the dowry available, and additionally it has the residence and all the things, all the prerequisites, the genuine, honest prerequisites prepared, and sees a woman and says, okay, here she is. Let's make the arrangements. When that happens, and then he endeavors to talk with her parents and the people who claim to provide the protection. Again, if she's by herself, what kind of protection, what kind of care are the parents genuinely provided? What type of intentions, genuine intentions, do the parents have? What is the woman doing by herself? Why is the parents providing for the woman to be by herself? Oh, she's her own woman. She can do what she wants. Okay, that means that she can marry who she wants without your permission. If she's on the streets dolo, then she doesn't have to come back to you and ask your permission for who she marries, because she's her own woman. She makes her own decisions. Okay, that's the type of protection and care that the kinfolk are providing. The man doesn't have to talk to the parents. She's her own woman. She can make her own decisions. Um, oh, huh? Okay. Um, and all right, that kind of speaks for itself, to be honest, if people are listening. Um, that and there's a lot else to say about that as well. I think, again, that hits, if when people are listening. One thing I'll say in addition to that, I think about a lot of things today, but one thing I'll say in addition to that is that those are the conditions that parents, teachers, employers, or whatever are availing, that are putting a woman into, when inviting, when leading, when opening the door for her to be on her own in public. That's what, even if that's not what is intended, even if that's not what's wanted, and additionally, that's what the parents are submitting to, are acquiescing to, is that scenario of her not returning, and not involuntarily not returning. Traditionally, parents are proactive and being insistent. Where are you going? Who are you going with? No. Make sure someone's going with you. Remember that term of um, a chaperone? How about that? Somebody always being in the presence of a woman, because parents know how serious and how powerful the conditions are. And that's, oh, it's so restricting. Oh, it's so confining. Oh, it's so da 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 da. Okay, then what you're saying is that, okay, you don't have to come back. You don't have to get permission. And that's what parents are saying when they let their child go out like that. Whether she's 25, whether she's 15, even just going to school. Yes. It's not just a matter of who a woman, or who a young teenage girl, woman, may be accosted by out in the public. That's not just the only thing, but just that's a huge thing. But it's when a parent sends or allows a woman or a girl even to go out in public by herself. The parents are acquiescing and submitting to whoever that woman might come into contact with, and saying she has our permission, she has our okay to go with whomever she wants. That's a huge statement to make, but that's how serious it is. And people who are traditional know that. That's why they say no, no, you're not going out by yourself. Make sure your sister is with you. Make sure your cousin goes with you. Don't ever leave each other's company. Nah, nah, nah. Y'all not going like that. Where's your brother? Make sure your brother's with you. Going to the store, getting water, whatever you're doing, you're being with somebody else. We know what the life is. So, in the postmodern science, in the postmodern society, you can pretend to have it both ways of liberation, and then also control and authority, but ultimately, um, it is illusion, self-illusion. All right, let me tell it after 2 hours of blah blah blah. I've got that off my chest now. Maybe have some further coffee. Let's have some fajr. How about that, please? Maybe even some prayer meditation, even if it's under the influence of caffeine. Well, what do we share here? We're starting to see some green in the horizon. That means dawn, the beginning. That's my sister's name. All right, we've gone on a lot about this. Hydration levels are moderate. A hamstring, I'm feeling it right now still, sitting down. So we got some healing to do. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah time. Music. What else to share? No, this is the caffeine that's carrying us. Let's be mindful of that. Intoxication. 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 That one is Rod Stewart. And the actual lyric is infatuation. Potato, potato. Blada, blada, blada. What else? Why am I still here? What else is there to say? What else do kinfolk want? Like I said, there's a lot of topics, and what I've already said was what I've already said for me to be here about Bob Marley, blessed love, memory, and gratefulness. At the moment, actually, to be honest, I'm actually maybe it's a little bit of the caffeine. Maybe it's the beginning of another day, of the daylight emerging. So there's a natural high with that. The energy at this moment this is like a power time of the day. This is like the power zone of the day. Heads are still quiet. The energy is wada. Now we're at the beginning of spring. Wada. We're in the beginning of this intensity of the window that I mentioned before. So I'm feeling a little bit of that euphoria, to be honest, and I'm feeling that experience of village. I'm feeling that experience of relationship, of that one love vibration, of just understanding, even just beyond this imperialistic language of English. Even just saying the word imperialistic, it don't even hurt at this moment. Maybe I'm innocuous. Maybe what's that called when somebody gets intoxicated and doesn't feel the thing. Anesthesia of the tea leaves. But it's actually natural life too. Amidst the motors. as part of that natural. I'm working on another word for harmony, because I've like within Rastafari we see the language, and the foibles of the language, and the concepts that are being manifested and conjured, even when intending to articulate and share like uh, positive affirmational things, but the words utilized to describe those things being antithetical, like harmony, like dialogue, and additionally. So in Rastafari, we say liberty and overstanding, but even then, it's just a stage of further learning the healthy words in Rastafari, particularly learning Amharic, and learning our ancestral languages of how to utilize those expressions, how to articulate those expressions, ideas, and experiences in an affirmational way, in a relational way with our ancestors, with our progeny, and with our relatives. Um, but at the moment, with the coffee beans and the tea leaves, coffee beans from Ethiopia, yes, Yugatefe. Tea leaves from China, actually. And to be honest, we actually tend to do the tea leaves from Darjeeling. Um, but we have the green tea, beautiful, beautiful. Black tea, beautiful, beautiful. We have mint leaves in these joints as well. From algebra, the calculations. Um, so these are the elements that are in the temple at this moment within the past hour. Amidst some, might have not had enough of these, but the orange. Um, what else we had? Oh, come on, some of Ohio's finest right there. Um, that's another thing too. Learning how to clean the water. You know how to do that. You live from that, or you avoid that with the bottle. But how about knowing how to clean the water? It's being done. The thing about that though is, one, it's necessary. We need to have a knowledge about that if we want to drink from that water. But when we actually learn that knowledge by the grace of the Most High, then we have a responsibility. Because if we learn that knowledge and then we don't do that, we don't practice it, guess what? Gone, done. So that's the weight of it. And also, when we learn that knowledge, when we get that information, access to that, means anybody who also shares that same access, again, but like with the internet, if we're getting the information from a YouTube video, that means everybody else who has access to the YouTube video is also receiving that information and has responsibility for practicing that knowledge. And if they don't, guess what? Gone. So that's the susceptibility and the liability of utilizing online communication, because there is that dilution intrinsically, civilizationally. So it's beneficial for us. It's necessary for us to progress in ways that optimize the concentration of how we convey the knowledge, how we share the knowledge, because it's necessary. We need to share the knowledge. We need to continue the knowledge. We need to practice the knowledge, and we also need to protect the knowledge, and we protect it by practicing it, and by maintaining. How about this? We get maintaining barriers. Are we going back to the varnas and that rigidity, the exclusiveness, but having distinctions about how people are exposed and have access to the knowledge? Because again, when cats can just grab a book and don't practice the book and just like throw it away, the knowledge of the book, all that effort of putting that book together is gone. And that might seem meaningless today. Who deals with books these days? But if you just think about like civilizational, historically, traditionally, how much work goes into actually writing a book, writing the actual book itself. For somebody to take all of that and then somebody else could have taken that and used it. So that the knowledge is the knowledge, whether it's through the book, whether it's through the digital or whatever, and the implications, the consequences of utilizing or not utilizing it are the same kind of thing. So we have to be mindful of that, of how much we make it available, and then the people who do gain it, that information, that knowledge, utilizing it in a responsible way. One of the challenges is that the nature of that sharing is very much across tribal lines. It's very much across religious lines. So people who have that knowledge about cleaning the water are from many different ilks, from many different walks. And so the nature of sharing and continuing to share that means cooperating with each other, whether we like each other or not, whether we agree with each other or not, or otherwise, whether we believe each other or not, we need to find a way of cooperating with each other because we share the same knowledge about how to live in this life, how to live in this civilization. And all of our lives are dependent upon that cooperation across the board, regardless of where you're at. On the horizontal, in terms of the lands that you come from, and also on the vertical, regardless of what caste or class you live in. We're all connected. Ain't no satellites in this joint that are disconnected. There is a seamless wire amidst the wireless. We're all connected. We're all affected. We're all dependent upon each other. It's the nature. It's the beauty. It's the one love. Let's wrap it up with that joint as the greeny green gets on the horizon. Maybe a little bit of hydration before the prostration. And the appreciation. Eternal. All thanks and praise to the Most High, Elohim. Respect and honor to all our ancestors, all our prophets, all our sages, past and present, known and unknown. Respect and honor to His Majesty Haile Selassie I and Her Majesty Waizaramanen. Respect and support to all our progeny for the first Siete generations, from the first Siete years to the next Siete generations to Ovador. One heart, one mind, one perfect love supreme. Blessed love and peace in Rastafari.